What's up, Tesla family? It's Ray J back with another video. And in this one, I want to break down what's happening with Tesla's SPY in the overall markets. I'm going to break down what's happening with the economic calendar going into tomorrow and Donald Trump's tariffs. And I think it's going to pan out for the charts as well. Just know that I am not a financial planner, so take nothing I say as financial advice. And also, if you guys can, please check out my Moomoo link. If you deposit $100, you're guaranteed 5 free stocks. If you deposit $2,000, you're guaranteed 30 in total, not to mention 8.1% APY in uninvested cash. Anyways, guys, for the format of this video, I just want to say that I'm recording this video in a different place. I don't really have access to a table. I'm also traveling for the weekend, so I'm not able to really turn on my webcam for today. But for tomorrow and beyond, I will once again go back to the format from yesterday. And if you guys want to see what I look like, just watch my previous video. You're going to get more information about Tesla as well in that one. But anyways, let's talk about what's happening with the market and Tesla so far. As you guys can tell, Tesla's been on a very, very big downtrend ever since the year has started. It's been just dumping and dumping and dumping. For the last couple of days in particular, we've had many, many red days in a row without any relief. And finally, it wasn't until Friday we got some relief after many, many days of selling. It was about a week of selling straight up for Tesla. So I think that we are due for some relief, at least to some extent, for the share price. And this does not necessarily mean that Tesla is done yet with all the selling. There will be future downside, in my opinion. But for the short term, there will be an attempt to relief, in my honest opinion. I'll break down exactly why that is and some more details about this. So the first thing worth mentioning is the fact that Tesla is seeking its first series of approvals to offer robotaxi services in California. This news came out a couple of days ago. This is good news for Tesla. Besides that, I didn't really see anything else that was too crazy on the news for us. But there are other catalysts that will affect how we end up moving. The market saw so much downside. So with the whole market trying to bounce, this is what does affect Tesla to some extent. Tesla was not the only company that was selling off for about 6 straight days. The entire market did, with all the news about tariffs and the fears with our economic data that was coming out. But on Friday, the market got a much needed rebound today. We saw Apple, Nvda, Microsoft, Tesla, all these different big tech stocks in the green. We saw more and more other stocks and other sectors in the green, and this is what really helped Tesla. So that's a good sign, at least thus far. Now, going into the economic calendar, just know that tomorrow is going to be Monday, March 3rd, 2025. At 9:45 a.m. Eastern Standard Time, we have the S&P Global Manufacturing PMI report. And then at 10 o'clock a.m., we have the the ISM Manufacturing PMI employment prices and new orders also coming out. So why is this so important? Well, we're going to get more information about the future state of our economy and demand with new orders data. And then prices gives us more inflationary updates. That's going to cause a lot of volatility. So get ready for that for tomorrow. So for the first 15 and 30 minutes of market open for tomorrow, I do expect some volatility. So we'll see what this data leads to. And then on top of that, I just want to mention we have more news about Donald Trump and his tariffs. So let me just make this very clear, okay? As I mentioned in my previous video, Donald Trump first said on last Wednesday, that the tariffs for Canada and Mexico are going to be delayed until April 2nd. But then on Thursday, he changed his mind and he was saying that they're going to be delayed until March 4th. So as of right now, as of the time I'm recording this video, we haven't really gotten much of an update since then. He is continuing to say that March 4th is when the tariffs will be coming out, which is going to be on Tuesday. Now, I don't know for sure until I truly see him impose them. I don't know if this is going to be another negotiation tactic, if he's trying to get Canada and Mexico to do what he wants them to do, and China as well, or if he's truly going to do this and impose them on those specific dates. We'll be waiting just to be safe, and this could cause more volatility for the markets. But because I don't truly know what Donald Trump is going to say, I can't promise you every one of my predictions will be perfect because it could be tricky sometimes, right? We don't always know what Donald Trump will say, but I do try to give you guys predictions based on probabilities and what's very, very likely to happen. So here's the agenda so far. For Canada and Mexico, we're expecting a 25% tariff by March 4th. Okay, that's what is so far on the schedule. And then that's also going to be including like 10% tariffs for Canadian petroleum and natural gas. For China, we're expecting the tariffs to take into effect on March 4th. That's again for tomorrow, an additional 10% tariffs on them. So we'll see if the date is truly going to be when these tariffs are imposed, or if Donald Trump is using them for negotiation. He wants to delay them one more time. We'll see, guys. If he delays them, the market's going to bounce. If he doesn't, this could cause more volatility. So make sure you're ready just to be safe. I do think that a lot of this could be priced in already for the markets, but there are future ones that could still make things very complicated. So we'll see what Donald Trump says. I'll give you guys an update once we hear from him. He should be speaking about this maybe tomorrow, but for sure by Tuesday we'll hear from him. And then for more news, keep in mind we have some earnings coming out. Everything is quite minor for Monday, but then on Tuesday we have Target, Best Buy, CrowdStrike, and a few more. Then we have Foot Locker and more earnings. And then by Thursday we have like JD, lots of these retail, not to mention Costco, which is going to be one of the biggest ones of the week. So get ready for that. And then for the market's current sentiments, just know that we're still at extreme fear. There's still lots of fear associated with Donald Trump's tariffs and with the state of the economy. Momentum is once again dipping, but I do want to mention that the S&P 500 historically at the 125 daily moving average, we do tend to see some relief here. This does not mean the market has bottomed entirely, but this could be a sign the market's forming a temporary bottom, just a temporary one. And we're going to see some temporary relief first before further downside in the next couple of upcoming months, right? So for the short term, if we could hold our 125 daily moving average on the S&P 500, we could be looking for a bounce, right? There's many times where we hit this, we ended up rebounding. We'll see if we get a temporary bounce from here. I also want to add that the put to call option ratio is at extreme fear right now. This is going up quite a bit. It's currently at 0.8, and we'll see if we get some kind of bounce or not off of that. Could this cause the market to bounce, or was it going to rebound more? We'll just have to see about that. I also want to add that as far as the market's going, we'll be watching this. I think that the put to call option ratio suggests that there is future downside coming one day. As we get to like April, May, there's going to be like even more downside. But for the short term, we'll see if that leads to a temporary bounce. That would be very healthy if we got that. One more news for crypto. There's a very, very big news that Donald Trump has tweeted the creation of a national reserve for many different cryptocurrencies, from Bitcoin to many other digital tokens. And that's a big news because this is leading to more confidence and more growth, at least for these different sectors. So we're seeing a lot of bounces for many of these crypto stocks. So that being said, what do I see at least for the market as well? What do I think is going to pan out as time goes on for Tesla and the others? Here's my honest assessment. So I just want to mention we do have these gaps that could still get filled in the future. They will eventually get filled, but before that happens, we might see a temporary attempt to bounce if we could try to hold the low that we had. The 200 EMA happens to be at 302 on the daily, and then when you go to the 4-hour time frame like this, you'll notice that 302 also happens to be where our 20 EMA is. So we have a confluence of resistance, a lot of interest in that area. We also have our trend line right over there. So yes, we dumped so hard. We just dumped and dumped and dumped and dumped and dumped on Tesla like there was no tomorrow. I'm not really seeing much of a divergence yet, but I do see some signs that it's trying to get some buyers to defend it just temporarily. So what could happen tomorrow is this. And by the way, if we're bearish on Tesla, you want to see us essentially lose 280. If 280 fails Tesla, we could be looking for a bigger dip all the way down to 275 or below. That's just like the more bearish case. To be bullish, you want to see us close above 302. If we do that, we could be bouncing for 310. So what do I think is going to happen? Here's my prediction. Now, it's possible we try to push a little bit higher tomorrow. We'll see if we get some kind of dip or not, depending on these manufacturing numbers. I can't predict that perfectly, but that could cause, somewhat of a dip or not. We'll see about that. And as long as we dip and make a higher low, as long as Tesla does not lose the 273 area, as long as we don't end up losing like 280 flat even, I think there's a good chance that as long as that holds, we could be looking for an attempt to get back up to like 302. A small dip, then a bounce, forming kind of like an inverse head and shoulders here. And we could see some buyers who are trying to defend and bring us back up towards these highs from 302 to about 307. There could be a temporary relief move just for the time being for a move like this. And then if we get bad news, then we could continue to fall later on. But just keep my levels in mind. Just know that I find this to be one of the most likely possibilities. Why? It's because it's based off many of our different EMAs and also based off what we're seeing on our 4-hour. And also because of the fact that Tesla's just dumped so hard without much of a bounce. I'm not saying it's going to be forever, it's just a temporary move up. We also have a bullish looking candlestick on the daily time frame, which could try to attract us towards our 200 EMA. So with the manufacturer numbers, we'll see if we get some kind of pullback or not. Then we could be looking for a bounce towards our 200 EMA at 302, and we'll see if that ends up being the case, but I see potential nonetheless. For other factors out there, we have SPY. SPY's daily chart looks bullish, and we have a lot of interest around this 598 area, but this is what I'm essentially watching for. So basically, if SPY could hold above 594.5, our 20 EMA, there's going to be an attempt to get closer to about 598. Okay, there's a good chance that's going to try to do that. And then if we end up failing, if we end up losing 590, I'm going to be looking for an attempt to get back down towards 587, then 585 as our main support zone if that ends up failing. To be bearish, I want to see us lose and close below 585. It's not going to be a good sign. And if you're bullish, you want to see this close above 598. So keep those levels in mind. I wouldn't be surprised if we try to push a little bit tomorrow morning, but then we'll be looking for a little retracement move. This data might cause a retracement. We'll have to see because the last pieces of data were not too good. And as long as we could try to hold or even close above like 590, then we could be looking for an attempt to bounce back up and try to fill this imbalance. I also think that we might go a little higher like this, maybe form a move like that. This also resembles like a left shoulder, a head, and then a right shoulder. So I'm going to be looking for a move like this to get back up towards this trend line and also where these imbalances happen to be. There's a good chance we try a move like this. So I find this to be the most likely case, wild volatility. It also depends on what the big guy Donald Trump says about his tariffs, but we'll give that some time. But for the time being, look for an attempt to push in the morning. Then we'll see if we get some kind of rug pull move, especially depending on this data. And then we could attempt to bounce again to try to push even higher for the very close to 600s. So this is the most likely possibility based off technical analysis. And then based off like other factors, if you look at like our fib level from here, right, that actually makes a lot of sense for us to kind of like retrace close to there. If we see like a temporary bounce, depending on how high we go, if it goes even higher, then this could actually be adjusted a little bit. But then I wouldn't be surprised if we bounce off our very, very key support before it continues to go higher, right? That's another example for why I'm saying this. But that's what could be happening to SPY as the most likely case. Watch your levels just to be safe. For the QQQ, keep in mind that it's been making lower highs, lower lows, lower high, lower low for like 6 days in a row, and it was due for some relief. I still think we could see a little bit more relief after so much downside first before we see a bigger move. So that's what I'm essentially anticipating looking at the daily chart. Now, hypothetically, if there's some kind of bad news and we end up losing 500, there's going to be a risk of us returning to 495 and then 492. As long as we hold above 500, we could attempt to make a higher low, then continue to push for 513, then eventually back up towards this imbalance at 518. So what I think could happen is something like this, where we attempt to go higher. I think that this 20 EMA is going to be acting as a nice resistance, and then we'll see if we form kind of like an inverse head and shoulders, or if we try to see a retracement move. It depends on the manufacturing numbers, but if we make a retracement, I want to see a higher low compared to this low, then we could be looking for an attempt to get back up to this other imbalance, right? This is what could be attracting us higher for that 520 area. I think there's a very good chance we attempt to move like that. That's the most likely case as long as we don't lose this low. If we lose the low, I will turn bearish, but I am anticipating a move like this to happen as the most likely case. So just keep that in mind. Now we have a very similar confluence on the Russell 2000. Notice that we have this white trend line, which was previous resistance, now acting as support. And then there was a time where we broke through this. We actually bounced off this, and then we tried to bounce again. So that's a very, very good sign. We also have these imbalances above, so we'll see what that leads to. But just know this, as far as the 4-hour goes, we could attempt to go higher towards our 20 EMA around this 215 area. Then as long as we make a higher low, then we could be looking for an attempt to bounce like this and try to get back up towards this imbalance right here around this like 217, 218 area. So I'll be watching this very closely. This also kind of resembles an inverse head and shoulders. If we dump, if there's a really bad piece of news, if Donald Trump says something, whatever it is, tariffs, whatever, if we end up losing 211, I will be concerned. I'm going to be watching to see if we ride this trend line lower towards like 208 or below. But as long as we make a higher low, which is very probable considering the fact that we already dumped 6 days in a row and we are due for some relief. And so far, the news that's coming out from Trump has been more bullish, at least for the shorter term. He's talking about like a crypto reserve. He's more optimistic. So that's pretty good for the markets. And we'll see what else he ends up announcing. But let me just make it very clear. We could be forming an inverse head and shoulders on the Russell 2000. As long as we make that lower, as long as we make a higher low, then we could be looking for some kind of rebound attempt. Looking at ES, I want to see if we end up holding above our 20 EMA. If we break the resistance and hold above, we're looking for essentially a move closer to like 6,000. However, the thing about ES is this. When you zoom out, you will see that we have these channels. There's a channel right here before we got a breakout, another channel right here. We tried to break through it only to come back down. However, what's good about this is that we're in a range. So we haven't lost our key support at 58.50 to turn bearish. And we haven't broken resistance yet. We're in the middle. If we see some kind of dip move, I don't want to see us lose 58.50 to turn bearish. As long as we make a higher low, we could attempt to bounce like this. This higher low could be dependent on some factors. What might happen actually is that we might go a little higher first in the morning. Then we'll see if the manufacturing numbers cause some kind of dip or not. If they do, that's going to be very healthy, and this could be forming like an inverse head and shoulders. I also want to add that this could be resembling like a very, very nice like retracement, a very, very key fib retracement right here with the inverse head and shoulders as we try to get closer to these imbalances. And then we could be looking for an attempt to get higher, closer to like 6,000 if we get that bounce. So keep that in mind. For NQ is technically on a bit of a downtrend, but I do like the fact that we're holding support. We're looking for 21,000 as our resistance, and we'll see if we reject off this or not. I think there's a very, very good chance we attempt to push higher here. And then I think it's going to be a tough resistance. So as long as we make a higher low, as long as we don't lose 20,500, then we could be looking for that bounce towards this imbalance at 21,300. So I'll be watching that very closely. For Bitcoin, looks bullish after Donald Trump announced the crypto reserves. Very, very good news. As long as we don't end up losing, we're at a very, very tough resistance at 94,000. If we could hold above that, as long as we don't lose it, then we could be slowly trying to get back up to 100,000. I think Bitcoin is looking bullish, and we're going to see a lot of crypto stocks push, especially like Coinbase. I'll talk about that in just a second. Nvidia is trying to rebound. Just keep in mind that the last time it was like around this area, you guys could quite clearly see how we had this support zone around this like 113 to 118 area, and that's what led to a lot of volatility. We actually bounce off of that. So from what I'm looking at, right, I wouldn't be surprised if we see a move like this. We try to go a little higher towards our 20 EMA around this 127 area. If we make a higher low, then we could be looking for an attempt to push higher for like the 130 zone. If we end up losing 122, we're looking for a dip lower, but I'm looking for a higher low and a bounce as the most likely case. So keep that in mind. For Tesla, like I said before, I think that this may attempt to go a little bit higher. I know the news cycle has not been the best for them, but I do think it's due for some relief. Might try to get close to about the low 300s. We'll see if we get a dip there, and if we can try to close above that. Then we could see a temporary move up, just a temporary push before further downside in the future. Yes, in the future, I do think Tesla could dump to the lower or even like the 250 area or so. But for the short term, there might be some temporary relief. For Apple, it's the same thing. Apple is showing a lot of resilience because we're holding this key trend line. We bounced off this, bounced off this, bounced off this over and over again. And then notice that we haven't lost this yet. So if we lose the trend line at 136, I will turn more bearish. As long as we're above this, we're looking for an attempt to get back up towards these imbalances. There's also a gap to fill around 246. So just keep that in mind. We'll see if we get some kind of dip move before it tries to bounce like this. Once again, forming a nice confluence. And that could be a very, very nice move that's coming. For Netflix, we have like a double bottom that's forming, but this depends on the levels. So if we end up losing 953, I'm looking for a dump towards the 940 area. If we break past 985, we're looking for a bounce. We have a nice double bottom here, so we could kind of dip here and try to bounce back up for like the 990s. I think we're doing a good job. For MSTR, we're technically on a bit of a downtrend. We're trying to bounce right here. We're looking for essentially 264.5. So this is looking very, very interesting. We're going to hit this resistance, and we'll see if we get some kind of downwards move at first to establish a higher low here before it sees a temporary rebound. That could be what happens for the short term. Celsius is kind of flat right here. I do see some weakness here, at least on the 4-hour. I'm going to be looking for a test of the 24s again before it tries to see a bounce. A little bit weak here below its EMAs, and we'll see if we try to see a bounce off our support there to get back to them. But it's still showing some weakness. Supermicro has been pretty weak ever since we had their filing. I just want to mention we're looking for essentially 40 as our support, then eventually 37.25. We have this resistance to watch for at 47, so I'm going to be watching to see how this dips right here and if we get a bounce. So watch that very, very closely as time goes on as we're making lower highs. No sign of a bounce yet unless we hold 40. So keep that in mind. It might dip a little bit more to test that before it tries to rebound, but there's still some weakness on this chart. Palantir got decimated. It is trying to rebound closer to about 87 to 90. So I do think it might attempt to get back up here, and we'll see how it reacts. And we'll see if we get a rejection or not. But just keep that in mind. There's going to be a little bit of a rebound move. For Rivian has this resistance around this 11.96 area. If this breaks, we're looking for essentially the 12s. If we lose support at 11.5, we're looking for a dip. So I think there's a good chance that we just continue to trade sideways. And we'll see how things end up going if we could try to uptrend a little bit more. But overall, I think we're doing a great job. For SoFi has a nice inverse head and shoulders like pattern. This kind of looks like a cup and handle, so I see potential in this. Also, you guys can see it's forming wicks like this, which typically shows signs that it wants to rebound. But the issue is that we haven't really broken resistance yet. If we end up losing 13.8, I'm going to be a little bit more concerned about it. So we'll see if we can try to hold above that. And if we do, there's going to be some kind of attempt to get back up towards like 15 like that. That's going to be a very, very good sign. For AMT, we're on a downtrend right now, but I want to see if this could rebound. We need to see if this could base at 100. As long as that could hold 100, we're going to be looking for an attempt to do this. Consolidate a bit before it slowly uptrends for the 104s, so keep that in mind. For ARM, we're on a bit of a downtrend. We're going to be watching to see if we could hold 127. As long as that holds, we're looking for essentially 135. For coin is looking pretty good. I do expect some upside. I think this is going to try to push tomorrow. We'll see if we get back above 224 at the very least. If so, I think we could be pushing for essentially 230 plus, eventually 239. But that's a little bit of a stretch. We'll see if we break resistance first to get up there. But it looks bullish. Amazon, pretty good. We have a nice double bottom. I don't want to see this close below 210. As long as we can hold above that, I think there's going to be an attempt to get back up towards this imbalance around 216. So there's a good chance we try that. For Meta, I want to see if this could break past 672. If that breaks, we're looking for 680. If we end up losing 658, we're looking for a dip. So we're making like a higher low here, maybe like a double bottom. So watch these levels. If we end up losing 658, we're dipping. If we break 683, we're a little bit more bullish. As long as 658 does not break, we could attempt to push a bit higher for the 670s. For Microsoft, we're basically on a bit of a downtrend here. We're going to be looking to see what happens at 399 to 400. If that breaks, I'm looking for 402. For Google's trying to rebound right here. We're looking for an attempt to get back up to 175, so we'll see how it goes. So just give this some time. For GameStop, resistance at 25. We could be dipping a bit towards 24.5 at first before it tries to bounce. So I'm seeing some weakness. AMC may also dip a bit towards like 3.2 before it tries to bounce. DJT looks a bit more bullish. I'm looking for a test of 24.87. The VIX, let me just double check this. The VIX could see, it depends if it could hold 19.21 or not. We'll see if we hit this and if we get a temporary bounce, if this causes the market to dip just a little bit. And if the market makes a higher low, then yes, this could be dipping a little bit more. This might be dipping just a bit here, just temporarily. A temporary dip could be coming if we do get a rejection because we are forming like a bearish divergence here. But then, even if we get that dip and the market bounces temporarily, that does not mean we're in the clear because in the future, as we get to like April, then this could break out again. I think we're not done yet with the market, with the bottom, basically. For the 10-year, this is dipping a bit. It's not really affecting the market too much. Still looks bearish. And the dollar's pretty neutral. We'll see how it reacts to this. It might retest our 200 EMA, and we'll see if we bounce or not. But my view in a nutshell is this: the market may see some temporary relief. I don't think the ultimate bottom is in yet. This may just be a temporary bottom for the markets, and we'll see if we make a higher low. If we do, we're going to be looking for some temporary upside. Then we'll see what the big reaction is once we get more data and Donald Trump's tariffs. I'll give you guys another update on that as time goes on. Anyways, I appreciate you guys so much for listening. Have a good day, and peace out.